everyone, and welcome to Take Two Radio. I'm Pam, your host, and I will be doing my show solo today because my co-hosts are wandering about somewhere. And I guess it's kind of appropriate because it goes with kind of like a theme to our guest today. So we'd like to welcome in actress and playwright Gloria Rosen. How are you doing, Gloria?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing out there in the Midwest?
Yeah, pretty good.
In the middle of the West.
It's not raining, it's not snowing, it's pretty nice, and I'm happy about that. That's all it takes.
That's great.
So solo women have to stick together, huh?
Yes, I think we do. I love your little segue. Yes, we are. We are alone here. Yes, we are. Only now we're a duo, not a solo, so this is good.
I know. And that's all it takes is two people getting together, right?
Absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about why you're here today. You have a critically acclaimed one-woman show called Listen, Can You Hear Me Now? And you wrote and you perform it, and right now it's playing, well, you will be because it's already August, but it'll be playing at the International Fringe Festival in New York, and it's one of the largest multi-arts festivals. So congratulations on that, first of all.
Thank you so much, yeah.
You're very welcome. Now, you wrote this show based on personal experience. Would you tell our listeners kind of what it's about?
It is actually autobiographical, and it's about growing up as a hearing child with two deaf parents. And it was kind of a unique situation of most CODAs, which are children of deaf adults, because I was not allowed to learn sign language. So there's a bit of a different relationship with the parents when that occurs. Because most of the people I know that had deaf parents, they all signed, and I did not.
You weren't allowed to learn it?
No, my mother did not want us to sign. You know, this was kind of this is a long. Well, I'm old. What can I tell you? This is a long time ago. What can I say? And at that time, my mother's family were all hearing. My father's family were all hearing. They'd never seen a deaf person before. This was all new to them. And even though my parents grew up with them, I think those were the only deaf people they ever knew. And they did not think that when my parents got married, that they should have children. They thought we wouldn't talk. We wouldn't, they wouldn't know how to, raise children. So, but my mother is a very smart woman, and she was determined that not only was she going to have kids, but we were going to speak perfectly. We're going to speak, and we're going to speak perfectly, and that's why she was afraid for us to sign. She just wanted us to talk.
So did they just read your lips then?
Well, kind of, yeah. She did. But my father communicated mainly by sign language, so it was kind of a little round-robin thing going on because we would talk to her and she would talk to him, and hopefully she would tell him exactly what we told her, but it was kind of hard to know whether she actually did that.
Oh, my God.
We never really knew,
Oh,
kind of a toss-up what exactly was happening over there.
Well, I hope she did as well, Yeah. Now, how did you come up with the idea to make this a show?
Well, it wasn't my idea because I basically never really talked about this. But 13 years ago, I met this incredible acting coach. It was sort of a South Pacific moment. I saw him across the room, and I said, "Who is that?" And they said, "He's an acting coach." I said, "I don't care. I want to work with him." I just liked him. And we started working together. And at that time, my father and my brother had both passed away. So it was just myself and my mother, mother-daughter, sometimes just a wonderful combination. So a lot of very funny things happened between us. And I was kind of in full charge at that point. So when I would go in for my acting and coaching, I started talking to him because they were all private sessions, and I would tell him all these stories, and he would just say, "You've got to write this down." And I would say, No, I don't. He'd say, "Yes, you do." I said, "No, I don't." You do? No. And then I said, listen, I remember a couple of funny stories. Leave me alone. I don't remember anything else. This is it. Leave me alone. But I loved him, and I just would, fine. He pushed me, mentored me, did everything he could. I said, fine. He even promised me that if I toured with it, I'd find a boyfriend, which was really a low point, And hasn't happened yet. But so we started writing, and I'd write one scene. Ask me questions. He was very good at this, like what happened here or what happened there. What would happen, if he was sitting at the table? Because I told him my father didn't speak. My mother, signed to him, and so there's a whole scene at the table. So I would write that and come back and say, okay, that's all I remember. But the more I wrote and the more he questioned me, the more I did remember, and I started writing all this stuff. And at some point I was doing this in a workshop, and somebody said, listen, I want to do some, I want to be a producer. And she said, I want to produce 3 shows, you. And I was one of the yous. Mm-hmm. So it was going to be 20 minutes. By that time, I had enough material for War and Peace. Yeah. So I basically had to learn to edit, and I sort of had a crash course in playwriting. And that was 2007, and I have been doing it one place or another every year since. And every time I would get into a festival and they would say, you have this many minutes, I'd kind of sneak in a few more. So now it's an hour. And now it's a full-hour
that's
show.
What I was wondering, since the time you started doing it to today's date, if it had changed at all. So it sounds like it did, just depending on where it was and how long.
Absolutely changed. There's a whole second part of this because it kind of ended when I left, sort of soon after I left home. And then I was working with Matt Hoverman in New York, who's an expert in solo shows. And he was asking me, well, weren't there other people in your life that helped you, that kind of helped you along and separate? And first I said exactly what I said to Peter. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And then, it's usually my standard answer. I don't know. I
think so.
But he was another one that said, yeah, you do. And I said, yeah, there was this one and there was that one. And then I started remembering everything. It's like little light bulbs going on in sequence. Never everything goes on at once. The little lights go on. And I had all these people that I remembered and what we did. And so it just filled out the whole thing.
Wow. I think, we all kind of go through that as far as our childhood is concerned. You really don't think about all the details. You have a memory here or there that you kind of keep with you, but as you get older, but you don't tend to remember everything. If we sat down and did what you did, we could possibly remember more.
In bits and pieces. And one thing kind of goes into the other. It's like a puzzle. It just sort of all fits in after a while.
Right. Now, did you ever think about doing a book instead of doing the show or in conjunction with the show?
Well, the show was first, and then when I had all this stuff and things kept getting left out, you can't be up there forever. And I would say, that doesn't really belong in the show, or I would try it out in workshop, and I think, I can't really do that on stage. Let's. Then it just became, well, I'll put it in the book. So now all those things that got cut off, that's what I want in the book. I do want to do a book.
I think you should because I think it would be very enlightening for people that are actually probably to this day still going through things that you went through with having deaf parents. Even though they encourage sign language nowadays, it just, some of them just probably don't do it or don't know if they should do it or if it's the right thing to do, and you can give them some input on that.
Well, the sign language issue is that is very much more accepted now.
Right.
It used to be when my mother went, my grandparents did not know my mother couldn't hear. She was sort of hard of hearing deaf at that time when she was growing up, but she was a natural lip reader. So if they were looking at her and told her to do something, she would do it. And then if they tried to call her from the next room or talk behind her back, they thought she was ignoring them, and they would punish her. And a neighbor came in when she
probably got in trouble, poor girl.
Yes, she did. And a neighbor came in when she was 12 years old and said to my grandparents, "What's the matter with you? Don't you know she can't hear?" And they said, "Oh, really?" They didn't know. And that's when they started taking her to doctors and found out that she could hear. And they sent her for 2 years to PS 47. which is actually a school that still exists. And at that time, sign language was forbidden. All the deaf children were supposed to just talk and learn how to lip read. So she spoke very well.
Mm-hmm.
PS 47 is now called the American School of Sign Language.
Okay.
It has completely changed.
Yeah.
All of that has changed.
180.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is great.
Yes, it is.
Now, was your father born deaf?
No, my father could hear until he was 4 years old, and it wasn't quite certain what happened. It was either a fall or they're pretty certain it was a childhood illness, and he just became completely deaf. He could hear a little bit with a hearing aid, but certainly not growing up. He actually heard better than my mother, but didn't really understand words. Mm-hmm. But he actually had a great time growing up because his parents knew by the time when he was 4 that he couldn't hear. And when they sent him to school, everyone loved him. My father was very charming. I mean, he was totally adorable. And the teacher said, "We love him. He's charming. He's adorable. We can't teach him anything." So they sent him to a boarding school for the deaf. Okay. So he actually had a much better time of it than my mother. Yeah. Yeah,
and adjusting and knowing what to do and what not to do.
Well, that's where he learned sign language, from the other little boys.
Yeah. Now, did they ever look into any operations, like as they became, adults, to see if there was anything that could better help them?
Yes, but both of my parents have nerve deafness, so you cannot do anything about that. Once the nerve is gone, it's gone. There are many other ways to be deaf, but that way, there was nothing they could do. They did look into it, but there was really nothing they could do.
Wow. Now, how did you learn to speak as a toddler when you have deaf parents?
Oh, my mother spoke. My mother spoke a lot. Because, again, her brother taught her. She spoke with her brother, spoke with her parents, but really it was that school that taught her how to speak clearly, really clearly. And she read to us. She read to us all the time. She read everything from Hiawatha to Shakespeare, and because she wanted us to speak, and that's really how we learned. My brother and I both learned how to read before we ever started school.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we spoke well, and I never had a New York accent because she didn't have one. So
is she from New York or from somewhere else?
No, my parents grew up. Basically, my parents grew up in Queens. My grandparents are from Russia, Russia and Germany. But my parents were first-generation Americans.
Yeah, because you definitely do not sound like a New Yorker at all.
Well, I could, if I wanted to. I really could. I've been on the subway a lot, and I know how they talk.
Yeah.
But if I spoke like that, you could not read my lips.
Right. Now, did you have to go everywhere with them so that you could tell them what was going on, or could they pretty much function on their own?
No, we actually, it was mainly myself. My brother was very busy with his homework and went to a high school in Brooklyn and left home when he went to college and basically never came back because he got married. So basically it was me. And my father, as I said, did not read lips very well. My mother did, but, that only goes so far. The person has to have readable lips.
Right.
If you're looking at a person with big buck teeth or a big mustache or an accent, like an English accent, that was impossible. My mother could understand a Yiddish accent because she grew up with that with her parents.
Okay.
But not other accents where people really don't move their lips very much. And, there's only so long that you can stare at somebody's mouth.
Right.
Marlee Maitland, the deaf actress.
Yes.
She was on Dancing with the Stars. She fascinates me. And I watch that show to watch her.